Salve, salve, BahiaCasters! Estamos aqui. Esse programa não é ao vivo, esse programa está sendo gravado e eu já vou explicando o porquê para vocês, para todo mundo que está acompanhando a gente. Nós temos a honra de receber mais um artista internacional aqui. Vocês já viram algumas pessoas passando por aqui e a gente fez uma enquete nas nossas redes para decidir qual seria o método mais apropriado. Se a gente teria, por exemplo, tradução simultânea. E a maioria venceu dizendo que seria melhor legendar, como a gente fez com o Dwayne Stephenson, que esteve aqui, com o Jamie Hickson, que esteve aqui também. Então a gente está gravando esse programa que deve ser lançado na semana super especial, que é uma semana de novembro, que a gente está chamando de Semana Super Reggae, porque além do nosso convidado dessa noite, a gente vai ter também grandes nomes do reggae nacional que nós já estamos agendando aí, naqueles corres, né não, Billy?
Com certeza.
É isso aí. Então você já sabe, você apoia o nosso canal, você ativa o sino, compartilha, dá like, faz aquele corre todo. Porque a gente depende muito dessa interação de vocês, não vai custar nada para vocês, mas vai fazer diferença pro crescimento do nosso canal. Então, compartilhem aí, faça todo esse corre aí para poder ajudar o BahiaCast e também para valorizar o trampo aí, o corre desses artistas, personalidades que têm passado por aqui pelo BahiaCast, né? E a gente pode dizer celebridades também internacionais e nacionais e locais aqui da nossa Roma Negra, Salvador. Salvador é a maior cidade africana fora da África, é importante a gente situar isso. E o BahiaCast está com essa perspectiva da gente valorizar os nossos. Esse é americano, mas é nosso também. Então, em nome de toda a nossa equipe, hoje Billy acumulando função, que é diretor geral do programa, né, Flávio?
Correndo, batendo escanteio,
Flávio estava esperando eu dizer isso. Billy, nosso diretor geral do programa.
Tá gostando, né?
Hoje acumulando função também, que está apertando os botões analógicos e digitais. E Suane também. Obrigado, a Suane fazendo a produção. Cabas está voltando esses dias aí. Lógico, quando esse programa for ao ar, ele já terá voltado. Hoje estamos tendo aqui o auxílio luxuoso também da professora Adriana, que está aqui mandando aqui todos os quiprocós, como a gente fala, né? Então é isso.
E tem também um músico aqui do Atocha aqui.
A galera da Atocha tá aqui, também no backstage aqui, também curtindo a presença de Mike Love. Gente, estamos aqui com esse grande artista, antes de tudo, um cara assim, um ser humano da melhor qualidade, um cara que faz a diferença e que tá vindo pela segunda vez aqui na Bahia. A gente aproveitou aqui o show dele para poder ter ele aqui no BahiaCast e ele, amável como sempre, respondeu com I'd love to, né? Então, aqui no BahiaCast, a partir de agora, nosso grande Mike Love. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So it was, we were so excited with your coming, the whole team, Billy and all our team.
Cool.
So it's very important for us because, you know, here we are trying to compose a map of everything that's related to that condition of our city, Salvador, the most Afro-descendant city outside Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that this city has to do with art, with knowledge. So we were very, very excited with your show here. And it's a pleasure for us having you here.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great to be here. And, you know, it's my second time here to Bahia, to Salvador, and my second time being able to do a show and share the stage with you and Adao Negro. And, you know, we met last time I was here in 2018, and you know, you were one of my favorite people that I met on the whole trip. I traveled around all over Brazil in 3 weeks and did 15 shows in 3 weeks, and I really, you know, I don't want to make anybody else jealous anywhere else in Brazil, but I really do, I really do love it here in Bahia. I think you know, there's an element to the people here that really reminds me of my home, Hawaii. So it's very beautiful and it's a very rootsy culture here, you know, and I'm not surprised that reggae music is very prevalent here and that I'm able to easily find a home and feel so welcomed here, you know, because of that energy.
Very good. So let's consider that people are knowing you better while we're doing this, or consider that people know everything about you, or even not so much.
Okay.
So you're from Hawaii.
Yep.
But it's not the right pronunciation. Let's start by this.
Yeah. Well, the correct pronunciation is Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
Hawaii.
Yeah, because, you know, I said, as we were talking of the phonetics of it, you know, you have ha, and then va-i. So the W-A-I is vai because it's vai.
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 Okay,
So
there's a stress in the final
Hawaii.
E.
Yeah, so Hawaii. And then there's an okina, which is like what you would call a glottal stop. So it's a stop in between two I's. So Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
I nailed it.
Yeah.
Very good. So, so you're from Oahu.
I'm born and raised in Oahu, yeah. And I actually just recently moved after living there 40 years of my life, born and raised there, and I've just moved to Washington State in the United States. So it's been a really, really big change for me. So just being here and being close to the beach feels
At home.
nice. Yeah, it feels a little more at home.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
I understand that. We that live by the sea, even if you don't go to the beach necessarily, but we have to know that the beach is right there.
Yeah, yeah. It's something in the air. It's a very the air is very alive. It's very dense. It's very thick. It's where I live now. The air is very still, and it's very dry. And so it's completely different, and I was talking with Flavus about the breeze, and that's something that in Hawaii is always like, if it's a little too hot, there's always the breeze, there's always the trade winds coming through, and it's kind of just it's always the perfect temperature, and that breeze just keeping the air moving. It just feels like it's always flowing, and for me, it's rejuvenating. It's refreshing.
Well, I think that Hawaii is a place that most people all over the world, they want to visit at least once in a lifetime.
Yeah,
because it's quite like a dream, distant dream.
Yeah, and I feel very blessed to just have woken up in this skin, and I was there already, so I got to live my whole life there, and I do feel very blessed. And it's funny because I grew up there, and when I was 18 years old, me and a bunch of my friends, we all said, we got to get off the rock. And I think when you live somewhere, you don't really have a true appreciation of it until you leave and you come back. And so we all moved to Los Angeles, which is one of the worst places in the world.
No, you're kidding.
It's an interesting place because there's so much entertainment that comes out of there, and there's kind of this excitement there of like, something could be discovered, and so you sort of go there like with a dream. But when you get there, you realize that it's not a very real place. People are not real there. They don't really look you in the eye. They don't want to get to know you. They don't want to be your friend unless you have something to offer. It's really that kind of place where it's like, well, what can you give me? I'm trying to get ahead. I'm trying to get here. And where I'm from, it's very much like, how can I help you? And we're all what we call Ohana family. And, we're connected. And even somebody that you don't know, you treat them like they're part of your ohana, because that's what we call the aloha spirit. And people, when you walk down the street, you look somebody in the eye and you say, hey, how's it? And you say hello, and you say, how are you doing? And in LA, when you walk down the street and people do not look you in the eye and they don't connect. And it was a very major culture shock for me to go from living my whole life in Hawaii and then going to LA. And it was just like, wow, it wasn't great. And then I went back home. I moved back home pretty quickly. And I looked around. I was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing place. And I just saw it with brand new eyes. And now I've traveled all over the world. I've played music on 5 continents already, and hopefully more, and hopefully many more countries. But I find, and I've been to many amazing and beautiful places, but there's nothing like Hawaii in the world. And I've been to many places that are similar, you know, that I can appreciate and say, hey, this could be a really cool place to live or grow up. But man, there's something very magical about Hawaii. It's very isolated in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And it's never too hot and it's never too cold. It's never hot enough to need an air conditioner. We never have an air conditioner. Never had one.
This is amazing.
It's never hot enough to need one, and it's never cold enough to need a heater. You just don't need, nobody needs those two things. It's just perfect temperature. And, you know, there's this funny thing where I see all these like really devastating disasters happening and floods happening places and hurricanes and in Hawaii, it's like there'll be this big hurricane warning and everybody gets really worried, but the hurricane always, when it gets close to the island, it just goes that way, you know, or a big tsunami is coming and then, you know, the tsunami comes and it's nothing, you know, and in my whole lifetime of living there,
you never experienced such a
an
incident.
No, there was never. I mean, the worst thing that happened there is on the Big Island, which still has active volcano.
Yes.
Kilauea. You know,
Famous Kilauea.
Yeah, right. And you know, a couple times in my lifetime it erupted, but it's like the kind of thing where nobody dies because the lava is, you know, it's like you can see it coming from over there. And even if you see it from over there, you still probably have about an hour before you got to get out of your house. And,
so
you know, you can't stop it.
Distant from the city centers.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And the Big Island, there's no real big city on the Big Island either.
Okay.
And that's the only island that has an active volcano. So, there's in the Big Island there's Kona and Hilo, which are the two.
Okay.
They're like small towns, you know, but everybody is spread out. And
although you had said that there are 2 million people living there.
2 million people in all the islands, all 8 islands.
Oh, 8 islands. Oh.
8 islands. There's Oahu, Maui, Kauai, and the Big Island, and Lanai, and Molokai. And these are the 6 islands that people live on. There's also Ni'ihau and Kaho'olawe. Ni'ihau is an island that is a private island, and only native Hawaiians live there. And they still live there in the way of the ancient Hawaiians, which is an interesting thing about language because, you know, when we talked about different dialects, you know, the people that live on Ni'ihau, they have a more ancient form of the language because they haven't been
mixed up with all the
so the people that know how to speak fluent Hawaiian language go to Ni'ihau and they don't understand. It's a very different form of the language. So. And you can only go there by invitation. You can't.
Oh, okay.
People can't.
It's a
go
way
there.
to preserve the culture and the language itself, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Kaho'olawe was an island that was used for military bomb testing. You know, back in
time.
Yeah, in the days of World War II, and so that island is still uninhabited because there's a lot of unexploded.
Okay.
They're still trying to, you know, remove all the so there's only 6 islands that are populated, but Oahu, where I grew up, is the main island, which with half of the population on that one island. And the Big Island is probably, you know, 4 times as big, but with, you know, 1/10 of the population. So it's very beautiful and spread out. And when the volcano erupted, it's like, you know, it's coming down the mountain and people know it's like, oh, our house is in the path. And so there's an area called it's Puna, that area, and they sort of build out there, Kalapana, it's all lava fields. And so people go out there that live out there, they're kind of crazy, you know, and they just build up their house, and then the lava comes and takes away their house, and then they go back and they just build on top of the lava again, you know, and they don't build very fancy houses. They're very like, you know, they use water catchment systems and, you know, solar power and generators, like off-grid living that people do out there, but it's cheap. It's the only place in all of the islands that's affordable because it's in the path of a volcano. So.
Okay, Michael, we know that you are very family is something very important for you.
Very much so.
You have 4 kids.
Yep, 4. Yeah.
I wouldn't say kid because 3 of them are already grown up.
Yeah, but they're still kids. Yeah. The oldest is 26, but he's maybe the least mature.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know, I think maybe even in the world that we're living in now, it's sort of I think it's a lot more sheltered in a lot of ways than when we were growing up. I think about like some of the stuff that we got away with when we were growing up. And I'm like, you know, the things that I did in school, for example, you know, and I'm like, man, if you did that now, there's no way you could get away with that stuff now. And even just you know, when I was growing up, my parents never knew where I was. You know, it was like, I'm going over to my friend's house, and it's like, you can't call me. I don't have a phone. You can't check out. Yes. You can't check on where I am. So I'm going over to my friend's house, and then we're out in the woods, like drinking beers, or smoking weed in the woods, or you know, like all night. And you know, I think now our kids really couldn't get away with doing that, and I always know where they are, and I always, you know, and it's like they don't. So I think it's in a way, they have access to more knowledge at an early age, and they're sort of like I think their innocence is less, you know. The innocence is less, but then the maturity is a little slower, I think, because of, you know, just kind of the world sort of coddling them, I think, in a way.
Yes.
It's interesting, you know.
Amazingly different. Only 1 or 2 generations.
Yeah, it is. I think of like, you know, we're musicians, and I think of like how I got good. I always say I got good at music because I was bored, you know. It's like you couldn't turn on the TV and turn on Netflix and watch a show for 10 hours straight because we didn't have that, you know. And if you turned on the TV, you might find something good to watch once in the day, but the rest of it is like you're not interested and you don't have control over it. It's just like if there's a show on that you like, you know, well, it comes on at 6 o'clock, and if you miss it, then you got to wait till next week.
Radically different.
Yeah, and so you do, and you don't know, you know, and you can't go text your friends and be like, hey, where are you? Let's meet up. You know, you call your friend. He's not home. Okay, well, I guess tell him call me back. You know, tell him to call me back if you know, if he comes home. And then it's like, well, what do I do? Well, nothing to do. I'll just play my guitar, you know, play the piano, and so we got good at these things because we just had a lot of time. And now there's so much distraction. I worry that our kids are just not going to be good at anything because they just have an endless source of information. Yes. But then at the same time, it's a crutch, you know? It's a crutch, right? Because now that you have this thing in your pocket that knows everything, you don't really have to know anything, because you can say, hey, how long does a humpback whale live? You know.
Oh, let's Google it.
Yeah, let's Google it. Yeah. But maybe, you know, there's things that you should know that you should just have in your memory, right? But I think it's sort of we have this natural inclination to not even worry about remembering or focus on that skill because we don't need to. because we don't need to. But
And if we need, it's there.
Yeah, right.
For sure.
But then it's weird because we come from a generation where we didn't have that, and now we have it. So we understand sort of the sense of the necessity for knowing stuff.
Yes.
But I worry that they don't even have that idea or that inclination, to just say, hey, I'm going to read a book, consume all this, and remember it because it's important, and.
But you talked a little about your the music in your life when you were younger. Listening to your work and having the opportunity to play with you, because we played, and then in the first show we played first, and then I was there watching your presentation. So I was very impressed by your technique, your virtuos, not only as a singer, but as a guitar player. And this is, my point is, although your music is not enclosed in reggae music, it's not only reggae music, you have lots of different colors in your music, like for example, complex harmonies and all that stuff that I like, of course. And I could perceive that you are in a different level in that sense. So, how was your formation as a musician?
Well,
did you study formally music?
No, I didn't go to school for it. But I did have, like probably the most technical thing that I did was I took piano lessons from when I was 6 years old to 12 years old.
Oh, okay.
And that's how I learned to read music, which I don't use so much now in the sense of reading, but I work with a bunch of musicians that sight read, so when I compose, I write parts out for them. So it's a great skill to have. It's something that I should probably work on a bit more. Because being able to sight read is so cool, to be able to just look at something and read it like you're reading a book and speaking a language, and you can just look at notes and play it. And I don't have that skill of being able to sight read. I used to be a lot better at it when I was doing piano lessons, but I think my dad's a musician, my grandpa's a musician, my great grandpa's a musician. So, and all composers, songwriters, and so I think it's a bit in the blood, and just I think what's in the blood really is a desire and an attraction, and I think I was just attracted to music from my first memories, and some of my first memories, I had a really great music teacher in elementary school. My mom is a Montessori teacher, so I went to a Montessori school. And I had a musical mentor. His name's Frank Lido. He's still a really great friend of mine. And he was a steel pan player from, and he also did a lot of, focused a lot on Brazilian music and traveled to Brazil quite a bit. And so some of my earliest memories is he would come to class with us in preschool.
You knew Brazilian music from the start? I mean,
yeah, just from working with him, and he would just do, he would do simple like exercises with us with percussion and with kind of call and response. He's a really amazing teacher, and he focuses on teaching little kids, so he's got a lot of Brazilian influences in Trinidad and Tobago,
Yes.
But do you know to sing Brazilian music? And in Brazilian?
No.
The classics like Tom Jobim or something like
Yeah,
this.
of course, yeah. But
wouldn't you risk a bit?
no. I don't want to insult anyone. But I love it. I love Brazilian music. I love the sound. It's such a soothing music, But yeah, I think I just I remember really early on doing those sessions with him in the class where he came and he just gave everybody a percussion instrument and we were all playing together. And then a little bit later, I was a part of the steel drum band, so I learned to play steel drum from him, I kind of got the coveted spot of being the bass player, in the steel drum band, which is like the big pans, the deep pans with like a few notes, and you're all like a big, kind of like an octopus or something. But I love that, and I love that role, and I think that kind of, in a way, sort of formed my love for that instrument, which is really my favorite instrument. I write mostly with the bass and the vocals in mind, and I find that that's a friend of mine told me, I don't remember who he was quoting, but he was quoting something. It's like, a famous musician, I can't remember, but he said, you can look at the score of something, and if you look at what the lead is doing and what the bass is doing, as long as those two things work together, everything else in the middle can be whatever, And it's a pretty interesting concept, because you can have, as long as those, and I do find that as long as the bass and the vocal work together, the chordal structure can drastically change. And I've written things that have done that, where it's been one thing, and then you end up changing the chordal structure or the tempo or whatever, or the groove or what, and you can change all of those things, but the bass and the vocal really has to work together. So I think that's my favorite, always been what I wanted to do, is just be the bass player in the background. I never wanted to be the singer.
No, man, you're kidding. It's impossible. Because that part that you say that you can do whatever is so characteristic of your work. I mean, it's part. It's a definite part of your touche, as French people would say. Touche. It's so personal, the way that you treat the vocals, and also by seeing you playing the guitar, the way that you use, for example, modes and all that stuff. That's different ways of that are not so common in reggae music.
Right. Well, I mean, I love the spirit of reggae music. I've been fascinated with many different kinds of music in my lifetime, and I really love all styles of music. I think you get to a certain age. When I was young, I thought I would like think, I'd hear something, and just because I didn't like it or it didn't resonate with me, I would say, it's not good. It's bad music. I would say, that music sucks, or like I hate that, or and it's like it's a very young way of thinking. It's a very immature way of thinking. And the older you get, you realize there's beauty in everyone's creations. And even if it's not something that you would put on and listen to, somebody else is listening to it, or even at the very least, even if nobody likes it, somebody created it, and it's their personal creation, and it's meaningful to them. And I find that beauty in everything, in every kind of music, in every song. And so I think, it's like music. It's universal. So I think if you can, and we live in this time, in this age of access to everything. It used to be, you go back 50 or 60 years, and it was like all you knew was the local music and what was on the radio. So it was either top 40 international or, the music of Bahia, right?
Yes. We had no control, no way to choose anything from
right.
it.
And you wouldn't be familiar with jazz, or with New York jazz, or with Spanish flamenco, or Chicago blues, or it's like it's really just what you're exposed to, right? And so I think people would most of the time play the kind of music that was from their region. But now there's just a complete blur of all of that, because we have access to everything, not only access to everything now, but everything that's ever been recorded.
Yes.
And even the ability to restore old recordings that might have been lost. So there's an amazing technology and connection in that way. And I think it's what it's producing is a lot of music that really is like genre fluid, doesn't really have, I think I don't want to box myself in to do one thing, because I just love all the music. If I get really into MPB and that's all I listen to for the next 6 months, it's like I'm gonna write a song that's gonna sound like that. It's just
natural.
It's not. I can't help it. If I find a singer that I really love, I'm gonna write a song that sounds like that singer to me. But I think you reach a certain point where you really can't sound like anybody but yourself. But still, in my mind, I'm writing a song that sounds like that singer. You know what I mean? And so I think it's just natural to kind of be an amalgamation of all of your interests, of all of your influences. But the thing about reggae music for me that changed my life more than any other music is the spiritual nature of it. And that's my connection to it, my connection to Rastafari. It changed everything about how I view life, how I live, how I view music. And
so you define yourself as Rastafari. Although Rastafari doesn't like even the idea of definition.
Yeah, I think
ism and schism.
Right, but exactly. And I think that's part of what attracted me to it. For me, I thought it's a spirituality. It's not a religion. It's much like, Zen Buddhism or or Ayurveda or Kundalini or something like that. And so now I think as a spirit, I've just evolved beyond wanting to put any kind of label on myself. But I will say that, Rastafari has played a huge role in my life, in my evolution. So yeah, I would say I do identify as a Rasta man, but also I identify with not wanting to label myself anymore with anything in particular. I will say, the teachings of Haile Selassie have been a huge part of my evolution. But as well as many other prophets and amazing teachers, such as Gandhi, Paramahansa Yogananda, and Bob Marley. Bob Marley's a huge part of my spiritual evolution, and music is so much music, but Bob Marley in particular. I think his music is really the gateway into reggae music for anyone, for everyone.
Yes,
for all time, and it's timeless. I don't think he would have even been able to imagine, with all the success he had in his life, I don't think he would have been able to imagine how successful he would be now, 41 years after his death, and how, he's still topping the charts of music, of the music that people are listening to everywhere in the world.
Fantastic.
And his name has become one of the names that you can go anywhere to any corner of the world and be like, yeah, it's Bob Marley. Oh yeah, Bob Marley. I know Bob Marley. Reggae music.
He was even listed as one of the top 10 celebrities, writers or songwriters who made top money in the world. And he was one of them, like close with Einstein or something like this. It's just a reference that came to me now. But it's a mark. It's a proof of how influential is
right
his music.
Right, and if you listen to the messages in that music, they make more sense and they're more powerful
Yes.
in the world that we're
Timeless.
living in today.
Yes, timeless.
Yeah.
It's amazing because we are always listening to something from Bob Marley. So you let's say doing the dishes, and then you put some Bob Marley to listen, and very commonly we have that impression that this is so how can I say atual? Lembrei, eu tô aqui já. So no, it's not modern. It's just
Modern.
No, it's not modern. This is so. It's so proper to what we live in right now. So up to date.
Yeah. I would say it's pertinent to the time.
Pertinent, yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think, it is. And there's a lot of music like that, but Bob is just the thing that I've always loved about him, and he personifies, I think, in music, this apex of taking a word that has meaning and putting it to music and making that meaning like multiplied by infinity. It's like many of the things, if you think about a song like One Love, one love, one heart, let's get together and feel all right. It's like, how simple is that lyric? It's like, it's kind of, in a way, it's like very mundane. If you just think one love, one heart, let's get together and feel all right. Yeah, let's get together and feel all right. Yeah. But with the way that song is created and the energy and the feeling behind it, it's like, it's so universal that like, you probably will never meet a person that doesn't like that song. It's it's so good. It's just the harmonies and the melodies so simple, but yet, I mean, it's incredibly powerful.
And you see, for us Portuguese listeners, it's incredible how his work remains influential. When you see a great audience, 20,000 people singing what they don't understand.
Right.
But they know the lyrics, at least the way it sounds.
Right.
They sound. So this is very powerful.
But I mean, that's a perfect example of like, it is kind of universal because it's pretty easy, even if you don't speak the language, to find out one love, one heart. It's like once you know it, it's pretty simple to learn just the meaning of it, no matter what language you speak. And once you understand the meaning of it, you already feel it because that feeling is woven into the music. And I always say, I've had a really a good success traveling to countries that are non-English speaking countries because I feel that music is about vibration, and that's one thing that Bob Marley absolutely understood. I think, it was intrinsic in him from birth, and he was just, I think, an evolved soul, enlightened to a point where he just understood how to do it. So when he sang a note, it was everything he was feeling. It's like there's nothing blocking the way. And that's my intention whenever I sing a note, is just a pure connection.
Tinha 40 minutos.
Já tinha 40 minutos?
Já.
We had incredibly 40 minutes. So
Alright.
let's try to...
Go ahead.
No, it's
Go
okay,
ahead.
it's okay.
Go ahead.
Can you go now?
I talk a lot.
No, man, it's perfect. But the point is that we are worried with your
Yeah, I
schedule,
think it's okay if we go
It's
a
okay?
little
Okay,
over. Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah, I just end up. I always, if you get me talking, I'll just.
no, it's okay. Mike, but there is something about that relation of the connection of your soul as an artist, as a person, with your audience, with your fans, that is very, very true. Because last night I was seeing a post of my team, someone from my team, the production, and he was filming you, and you were adjusting your equipment at the sound check, and he said, "This is so rare, an artist that is right there taking care of his own equipment without anybody else and all that stuff." But this is only part of that, because I'm having the opportunity to know you better as time goes by, not only because we worked together a couple of times, but this is something that is very, how can I say? This is very evident from people that have the opportunity to work with you, to talk to you. You have that true connection with people that listen to your music, and it's something that you consider that is fundamental in your work. It's the message. So this is related to, as you said before, to some spirituality without labels.
Yeah.
But also it permeates other aspects of your life. For example, you are a vegan. Would you like to elaborate that relation?
Well, I think for me that's part of Rasta. It's like it's a way of doing the least harm, and I think embodying one love is it has to extend to every aspect of your life. And I think, I have no judgment for people that eat meat, and I think we're all on our own journeys, and some
Individual ones.
and some vegans are very militant about, calling people out on doing it.
Sometimes even being aggressive.
Right, and being very aggressive, yeah. And and that's their own prerogative, and that's their own journey. But I find that's not really an effective method to change people's minds. I don't think you can change people's minds with anger or with guilt or judgment. I think it's best to lead by example. It's very simple, And I find, for me, I think there's an abundance of food in the world that doesn't require killing, and I saw I can't remember where it was from. It was an interview. It's an old Rastaman, and he said, "Why take another's life to sustain my own?" And that resonated with me deeply. It's very simple, If I don't have to, why take a life just to sustain my own? And I think there's a major disconnect in modern society, especially. I think even if you go back a couple of generations, our grandparents or our great-grandparents were living in a world where most people supplemented their food supply at least with some farming, farming of vegetables and livestock, and they had chickens for eggs, or they raised animals, and then they were a part of, if they were eating meat, they were at least connected to the act of slaughtering the animal and cleaning it and all of that. But I think when you go to the supermarket and you get a piece of meat and it's all in a package, and it's not even it's not called a cow, it's called a steak, it's called a hamburger, or so I think there's a lot of methods to disconnecting people from that this is a real living creature, that and one of the worst parts about it is that a majority of it is from factory farms. So it's not only just like an animal that was raised on a beautiful farm and had a nice life, and then was kind of a part of the family, and then in the end they took its life and fed the family with it, which I can understand a lot more than an animal that lives its life in a warehouse pumped full of steroids to not even reach a mature age and lives a miserable life and never sees the light of day, and then is slaughtered. And I think a lot of people don't really even think about that. That's where that's where it's coming from. And it's not vibrationally, it's a very low vibrational way to sustain your body too. So, I mean, that being said, I'm not judging anybody for what they do or their actions. I'm only in charge of my own actions, but that's the reason, and I do think it is part of spirituality, because I do believe in karma, and I do believe that there is a karmic weight that comes with everything that you do. If you steal something will be stolen from you eventually. Not necessarily physical, but it could come back in an emotional form, or a physical form. But I do believe in that. I do believe in that balance, and so I try to just live my best. But I'm so far from being perfect. I'm just like anybody else, and I think when you make music and it's of a spiritual nature, or it has a message, it has a positivity to it, I think people like put you on this platform and think you're above reproach. And I mean, I think Bob Marley, like, I've heard stories of some of the things that Bob Marley did, and it's like, wow, he did that. but he's human too, and you often hear stories of these gurus, and there's a pretty famous story that people made a movie about, of this guru that I actually have some friends that were sort of a part of his thing, and he's a very powerful healer, and there's great evidence that this guy's got an amazing gift, a spiritual gift. He's touched and very highly enlightened, but at the same time he was abusing his power and abusing and like sexually taking advantage of some of his followers. Yeah, and it's like, it's a very common story, and I think it's not easy to be in that position, to have people adoring you and treating you like you're higher or superhuman.
Okay.
And I'm not superhuman. I think it's important to make a distinction in what comes from you and what comes through you. I'm just a human experiencing this life and learning just like everybody else. I should not have eaten some nuts because.
Don't worry.
But I'm just a human experiencing this just like everybody else. I'm learning and evolving.
How long have you been vegan?
Well, I think, and I want to also clarify with that a label like that too, it makes it so absolute.
Yes.
And so I think with that, like, there's times when I still to this day will, like, because my son eats cheese, he's a vegetarian, but he does eat cheese. And every once in a while, I might, like, if he's got like a cheese pizza there, and I might see it and be like, oh yeah, cheese, and it's good, it tastes good. So I'll eat a piece of cheese pizza, right? Okay. So then some people who are vegan would be like, oh, well, you're not a vegan. Well, I mean, I got it. I have it. I think it's on this. I can never remember what side. It's on this side of my neck, right?
Yes.
And I have vegan tattooed on my neck. And I thought, when I get this tattoo, I got this tattoo because I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be more strict and just say, no, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna be very strict. And but it's just a tattoo. It becomes like a birthmark, and you forget about it, and it still doesn't make a difference. I'm still tempted and still sometimes fall victim to that temptation. So it's like, I'm not perfect, and I have been vegan I've been vegetarian for close to 20 years. I definitely haven't eaten meat for close to 20 years, but vegan for probably most of that. And again, I say vegan the term loosely, because I'm not totally like perfectly strict. So, I think that's the thing about labels is like, you gotta.
We must be careful about those labels.
Yeah, right. Because you give people the opportunity to be like, oh, you're not that, Like people, I'm sure a lot of people would say, you're not a Rasta, because they have an idea of what that should be. But really, I've become aware that spirituality is a personal journey, and we're all completely unique souls, and like we're attracted to each other because we're at maybe in the same ballpark of our spiritual journey, right? But like I couldn't hang out with somebody that's like just in a completely different world, and maybe their whole world is like sitting on the couch and watching baseball or something like that, and like that's not, that's the peak of what they're interested in, and like no judgment, but that's a different, that's somebody that's not, that's on a different spiritual plane, which is fine because, we all experience all these. I believe, that's the reason why there are serial killers in the world and rapists and people that want to be, CEOs of corporations and just destroy people's lives for their own personal benefit. And I think that, we have to experience these things at a certain point to understand that it doesn't feel good. Like, I know that. I'm not attracted to that at all. I'm not attracted to getting a bunch of money and like having power over a bunch of people, because I already feel that's not attractive to me. But I feel like it must be because I experienced that already, and I think that's part of our soul's evolution and what we're here to do. I mean, these lives are so short. We're here to experience and grow from our experiences, from our reflections, from the people that we meet. And so, I think that when I say, Rasta, for me, it's like it's like a word that I could. It's hard to attach words to things that there are no words for. You could say God, you could say Jah. I use Jah the most, but really it's just a word for something that is indescribable. That there's no language for that. It's everything. It's all energy. It's the universe. It's the multiverse. It's whatever you want to call it. Everybody has different names for it, but we all understand when you say that word, whatever it is for you. When you reach a certain point, you understand it's universal. There is no real defining it, and no religion can define it. And really, religions are I think organized religions are, a way of taking that feeling and using it for control or gain. But that's a whole nother podcast.
That's why we need artists,
Yeah.
just to, as sort of antennas. How can I say antennas?
Yeah.
Antennas.
Yeah.
That are vibrating with the same frequencies in the universe. So we're here maybe to translate, to communicate that, maybe.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think and it's good work, and I think over time, in the history of time, musicians have been the ones who carried the message and carried the true news, and still, I think in an era of where propaganda is prevalent in all news and political arenas, it's like the only people that are really telling the truth or bringing an awakening are the musicians, are the artists, and we have to continue and have to do it more than ever and strengthen ourselves more than ever to be able to do that work.
For that, we thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Love aqui com a gente, rapaziada. Porra, sem palavras aqui. Nosso horário tá assim um pouco apertado, porque o Mike já vai viajar. Então, quando vocês virem, né, que isso aqui tá sendo gravado, vocês virem essa na íntegra toda, assim, o nosso bate-papo aqui, vocês vão saber que ele tá terminando nesse momento, porque a gente tá tendo uma atenção ao schedule de Mike, que ele tá nesse momento em turnê por toda a América Latina. A lot of shows still in Brazil and other countries in Latin America.
Yep. I think in Brazil, I know for sure
São Paulo.
In Fortaleza, yeah, there's a big festival in São Paulo with Soja, Manaus. Yeah, I think that's. I think there are some others maybe, but I'm not even. I think we're supposed to announce any day the rest of the tour. We have announced up to this week, and then we're supposed to announce the rest of the tour. But yeah, traveling to Buenos Aires tomorrow, and then to Montevideo and to Santiago, Chile, and then back to São Paulo on Saturday. Yeah, so we'll be in São Paulo for the election. So.
My God.
Yeah, so it's going to be...
Perfect timing.
Yeah, it's going to be wild
Mike
time.
Love, in the name of the whole group, the whole team, we thank you for your kindness, for your music, for being that human being. That's not only our opinion. I think that I understand that as an artist because people tend to say that about our work too, about our message. So I think that we are part of a great team.
Yeah.
And also in the path of our individual journeys, trying to do the right thing, not always doing the right thing, but...
And I say, I always say we strengthen each other. We strengthen each other. Wherever I travel, I'm bringing the message and the energy of Arau Negro as well. And, I know that you're here, bringing it here.
Yes.
And so when I come here, it's stronger because of what you're doing here. And it's stronger for me because of what you're doing here. And we're connected. So, yeah, keep it up. Keep it up as well. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Muito obrigado.
What else in Portuguese?
Eu amo vocês.
Muito obrigado, Mike, e a toda a equipe, rapaziada, que tá aqui em off. Foi muito massa também, muito legal. Assim, uma grande oportunidade pro BahiaCast. Esse carinho desse cara que é verdadeiro. Eu posso dizer pra vocês que é um cara verdadeiro. E todo mundo que se aproxima dele é um cara verdadeiro. O nosso grande Mike Love. Muita paz e luz. E a gente segue, né, Billy?